We in there. Hello.
Hey.
Hey. We are on the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the From Tools to Traits live book club. We are on week 4, and this is actually our final week, but we have 2 shows this week. So we have my guest, and I'll get to talking about her in just a second because I love her so much. So I'm going to do a nice, proper introduction. But then we have another guest on Thursday who I adore, but I want you to be ready for that. On Thursday at 7 o'clock, we have my dear, dear friend, Annette Murray, who is going to be joining us. And we're going to be talking about From Tools to Traits, but we're also going to be talking about her book called Finding Me. And as I read her book, probably a little over a month ago, I thought, oh my gosh, there's so many parallels in her book as well as my book. And so I needed to have her on as a guest. Make sure that you tune in this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time, when we get to talk to my dear friend Annette Murray about her book, her journey, her life. And we'll also unpack our episodes 9 and 10 chapters 9 and 10 of my book, From Tools to Traits. And I'm excited to have her as a guest. But for right now, we get to talk to my dear, dear, dear good friend, Miss Arnita Taylor. And Arnita is someone that so many people know her from afar. As a matter of fact, my business partner mentioned that. She goes, I know who you're talking about. She came to our church. How do I know her? And I was like, well, I don't know, but she lives in Keller. And she goes, yeah, somebody said her daughter looked just like you. She didn't get to really meet you, but she knew you because you visited her church one time. And it was like a pretty impactful memory for her. Awesome. So many people know you. So many people know you. She is the CEO and founder of an organization called 8 Leadership Development Group. So she is really, really passionate about leadership and development, but she's also super, super passionate about a topic that I'm super passionate about, and that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And how do we create spaces that engage in healthy dialogue and conversation? So Arnita, I am just thrilled to have you as a guest for this evening. Thank you for coming, and thank you for joining us.
And thank you for inviting me and having me. It's my honor. It's an absolute honor.
It's great. It's great. I'm going to run over to the comment section. I see a few comments in the stream. Okay, my friend and your friend, Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
Yes. Is in the building. I'm doing a lot right here. So if y'all see me playing around, it's because my comment section over here is doing some weird stuff. So bear with me. Nicole is in the comment section hanging out. I am looking forward to, yes, Arnita is amazing. I agree.
Thank you.
She is. She's just someone that I know that when I talk to Arnita, I'm going to get the truth.
All 150% of it.
I'm going to get 100% of the truth. And the most beautiful thing about it is that it's always coming from a place of love. And it's always coming from a place of wanting to see the best for me. And I'm sure she's like that with everyone. I want to tell everyone how we met. You and I were just kind of talking about that backstage. So we share a mutual friend who at the time, I like everybody else, I knew Arnita from afar, but I didn't know her. And so I just kept saying, my goodness, she's just got this beautiful presence, this bold presence. Like, you know, I just need to get to know her. And I'm not the type of person that facilitates my own way of getting to know people. But I just knew when I saw her, I'm like, yeah, she's about it. I need to get to know her. She just has a presence about her that just is inviting, but it's filled with purity and honesty. And I didn't know that at the time. And then our mutual friend visited our church at the time. And he asked me, do you know Arnita? And I was like, I know who she is, but I don't know. He goes, oh, you guys need to meet. You guys are exactly the same. You're the same people. You guys get to meet. I think he went on the other side of the church to go find you.
Yes.
And he drug you over to where I was, and we got to meet. And shortly after that, we spent some time together. And I was like, you know what? He's a good matchmaker. We are
Two peas in a pod.
two peas in a pod. I just adore. We have a lot of the same thoughts on everything.
Yes.
On everything. And I think our approach is very similar on how we respond to everything. And so, so I'm laughing because I feel like we're in for a treat tonight. We're talking about poise, and we're talking about Poise Principles, chapter 7 in the book. And poise is not always an easy thing. I'm gonna tell you, it is an intentional decision on how to respond and react to life. And we're gonna dig a little deeper into what that really means. But she and I probably, because we're bold truth tellers in a way, sometimes it may not be read as poised, but I think that you can be honest and poised at the same time. And so we're gonna dig into that conversation a little bit. Tell me a little bit, Arnita. Just talk. Just talk to us. When you hear the word poise, what do you think of?
Well, I don't know if you remember initially when you invited me to do this. Literally, when you said the word poised, I kind of got tickled. I had the book and I was like, poised. Oh, that's interesting. So you know what I did? I went and got the book, read the chapter 2 times. Not one time. I read the chapter 2 times because I was thinking, okay, poised. Because when I hear poised, I normally think proper. I think elegant. I tend to think quiet. A little bit more crispy, less than assertive. Just put it that way. I don't particularly see myself this way, but it was so hilarious. Yesterday, I was talking to one of my sisters about doing this conversation tonight and how excited I was to talk with you. It's different letting people hear our conversation because our conversations are always so long and good. And so I told her what the topic was, and I said, well, if I'm being poised, but I don't think I particularly see myself as being poised. And she said, but wait. She said, probably compared to what you want to say and what you do say, you're very poised. And I thought, man, that is probably a very accurate assessment of me. So coming from my sister, that meant a big deal. So
I can agree with that because for me, talking about poise is, we talked a little bit about intentional encounters last week, and we said that it's the difference between responding and reacting. And typically people who I think, or who I would define as someone who is poised, I think that they are always, or maybe not always, but most of the time they are saying something that is beneficial to the conversation. It's appropriate. It's not so much about a daintiness or anything like that. It can be, but when I think of poise, I think it's someone who's very, very self-aware of themselves and aware of their surroundings, aware of everything that's going on in the room and knowing how to respond to it appropriately. I wrote, let me just say this. There's a huge disclaimer. I didn't write this book from a standpoint of I have arrived. I wrote this book from a standpoint of these are things that I'm constantly working on all the time. And I was sharing with Arnita before we went live a couple of stories of things that have occurred, within the last 6 or 7 days that have made me really pay attention to my responses. And when you're about to teach something or engage in dialogue or do something that's a spiritual principle, the Lord will always test you in the area that you're about to speak on. Sure. And it's no different this time. I have been tested even as up to today.
Well, you just get a little practice. It's just practice before we go live. Y'all, we had a whole other show before the show got live. I
think I got my counseling session before
this is part 2 of the conversation. We'll let y'all
part
know.
2.
Yeah.
Part 2 of the conversation. I want to go in here and check out the comments because we got some people in here. My dad is here. Thank you for tuning in. Linda Brown is watching with us. Kristen Mitchell. Kristen says, oh my God, she's gorgeous. She's talking about you. I agree, Kristen. She is gorgeous inside and out. My other niece, Ashley, I'm so glad you're tuned in. I'm so glad you're doing well. I love you, love you, love you, love you. I normally don't do that. I just absolutely did something I hate doing. I call out people that are watching instead of people that are commenting. And that's a big no-no for me because I'm so sorry. If you didn't want to be called out, I apologize to you, but I'm glad that you're tuned in. Over in the comments section, Nicole says Arnita is a truth teller. Yes, she is. She's a truth teller. My fam, Yolanda Liggins says, hi, beautiful ladies. Hi, Yolanda. We're so glad that you're with us. So glad you're with us. All right, we're going to jump right in. Page 97. So we talk about, tell me what you think about it. I know we already said it. I want you guys watching and joining us in the comment section to also talk to us. Tell us what it is that you think about when you hear the word poise. What is it that you think about? And then, Arnita, give me some examples of who you would describe as poise. Maybe somebody, some celebrities or people that we might know.
You know, I thought about that. I love that question. And I thought about, there's so many poised people in multiple contexts. You know, some of them are political leaders, some of them are entertainers, some of them are educators. But, you know, I personally think Oprah Winfrey, I think she's very poised. I think she's very poised. President Barack Obama, Bishop Kenneth Ulmer, John Maxwell.
Yes, yeah.
Poised. I even think LeBron James is very poised. I had a friend that passed away very recently. Her name was Colleen Fauché, and she was very poised in what she says. So they're not only people who are near you, they're people who are near you. My son, Evan Taylor, very poised. So I just think that there are always people around you who are poised. When I'm on a team, the quiet people are always probably the most poised people. The introverts like you that I don't know what to do with. But when an introvert speaks up, it's normally very poised because they have thought about it. They are responding. They're not reacting. But I just think, you know, from time to time, you just notice people who are very poised.
Yeah. I think about some of the examples that I wrote down in the book. Jackie Kennedy Onassis, to me, was just a very poised individual. When she did speak, it seems as though it was very clear, very direct, and impactful. I see somebody like Felicia Rashad, who played Claire Huxtable. Claire Huxtable, the character she played was poised also, you know, absolutely, in my opinion. So I looked to them. Oh, Coretta Scott King. She was somebody else that I wrote about. Just very aware of her mannerisms, her presence, and her voice, and how to handle that and how to respond to that. My friend Annette Murray, who's going to be joining us Thursday, she said it's a true statement. We tend to experience a battle of what we're about to discuss. My goodness. Miss Brown says, hello, guys. Narisha, you always have the best guest, and she's beautiful. I agree. I do have the best guest, and I'm hoping that be able to open up this platform even more after this. We'll talk about that later. Lanisha says, hello, beautiful ladies. Lanisha's watching. Yes. Run over here. Yolanda says, he will do just that. I'm still in his class of how to say what he wants me to and not what I want to say. I am self-aware, but I'm working to be Christ aware. Let me tell you something. Me too, Yolanda. I failed the test today because I did not think, even though what I said was truthful, it wasn't necessary. And so sometimes that, you know, we are always tested, you know, like you said, we're tested in the area. The way that I kind of define poise in the book was it's the way that you carry yourself. Maybe it's your composure, your self-awareness. It's a mentality. It's the way, when, and how we respond to life and triggers. Ooh, okay. So we kind of talked about triggers in our pre-show. And I shared a story with you how recently I responded to a trigger. Do you have a story, Arnita, that you want to share with us about how you respond to triggers?
About how I respond to triggers. We all have triggers. Normally, when real honest with you, it's really interesting. It kind of depends where the trigger comes from, where the origin of the trigger is. And so that'll make sense in a minute. But sometimes, you know what? I will just count in my head. I start counting. And if I start counting with the Greek alphabet, it is even worse. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. If I'm doing it in the Greek, then it's a different kind of level. I'm trying to really calm myself down. Sometimes I will have a water bottle in the room and read the ingredients on the water bottle.
Wait, read the ingredients
on the water bottle. It can be Ozarka, it can be Nestle Pure, it can be whatever. I'm going to read the water bottle because I'm trying to tell my mouth not to open. Sometimes I will take a notepad so I can doodle and deflect and write God is love 100 times. Do my own personal write-offs. So I know how to deflect me in a trigger, but most of the time, if I'm really triggered and it's not urgent, because you know what I found, often when I'm triggered, I don't have to respond urgently. Everything is not that. Everything is just not that. Everything doesn't have to be addressed. I will always buy myself about 72 hours. People on my teams around me will know, give me 72 hours. Esther saved the whole nation in 72 hours.
That's
I just need some time to put it back, calm it down, think through it, get out of my head, get out of my emotions.
Oh, that's good.
So that's kind of how I handle triggers. I have to have something to deflect me off of what's right there in the front of my mind to say, and it's almost shifting about 6 inches and it's on its way out. So, yeah, triggers.
So that's really, really good. One of the things that I do when I'm practicing poise is when I'm triggered, I take a breath. And I literally just pause and think about, because so I'm a visual person and life comes to me animated in so many different ways. Like there are some people I can see them and I relate them to an animation for some reason. It's just how my brain works. And so when I am triggered, it looks like a multiple choice test going over my head. And I have A, I can say this, B, I can say this, C, and D. And I'm literally looking at my options and saying, okay. And it happens so quickly. It happens really, really, really quickly.
Wow.
And the goal is to choose the best response for this situation despite my emotion.
Yeah.
And the options give me time to process that emotion.
Okay.
Because obviously if I'm looking at multiple choices, it's triggered by an emotion. Yeah. It is, because like you said, the first thing that wants to come out, okay, I don't want to say that one. I'm gonna put that. That's not it. Let me see what else could be better. And I pass and I fail, just depending on the moment, the mood, the thought. But it's being aware that I am to be in practice of making the right decisions. And sometimes, like you, the choice is none of the above.
None of the above.
No. I'm also guilty of allowing my facial expressions to have a conversation that my mouth may not say.
Sure, because you know what? We're always messaging. And I tell people, when God gave out poker faces, this chick did not get one. I didn't get one variation of one. He just didn't give me one. So most of the time, that's why I wear really big hair and really big glasses, because I'm trying to hide some stuff. I'm probably trying to hide some nonverbals. But of course, we're always messaging. But in defense of everybody listening, and you too, Narisha, and me too, we're going to have some freedom tonight. There are just going to be days when the poise points go out the window. They're going to be gone. We're going to miss miserably. The poise points are going to leave us on some days. And that's okay. You just redirect, you think about it, you reflect, how could I have done that better? Do I need to go say something different? And you just go forward. It's not a place to not let yourself have grace and practice. So
absolutely. I appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you saying that, because I do tend to, and I'm sure a lot of people watching have the same type of thought process. I do tend to beat myself up when I feel like I have not responded appropriately, or responded the not with just what, but how. Because I could have said the same sentence, but my inflections might have been different.
Sure.
Or my head tilt didn't have to go that far. Instead of doing all that, like I could have just little, it could have been 45 degrees versus not like that, So I examine everything, because I'm very conscious of the experience that I want people to have with me. And I don't want to ruin the witness and the relational equity that I've built up with people.
I love that about you. I don't know that that's my motivation. I don't know if that's my motivation, but I do love that about you. I do. I'm older than you, though. I may be past all of that. So
no, tell me your motivation. Tell me your motivation.
I don't know that my motivation is I think some of the best times that I've been poised, I know I've said stuff that's just not going to make people like me. And I really, that's probably really not my goal. I have conversations about race, sexuality, religion, and politics.
Right.
So, I'm really not hustling friends. You can just tell. That's not so, I think motivation does matter. It does matter. I think when we're talking about poise to me directly relates to your principles, your values.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you'll speak differently when it's really a core value for you versus when it's not. Versus when you think something is essential versus not. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. But certainly, motivation, values, purpose, destiny, all of that.
Yeah.
Plays into poise.
It's good to also know what triggers you. We talked about this last week also, because if you know what your triggers are in an environment that you are entering into, you can have those deflections that you were talking about ready to go, so that when it does happen, or if it does happen, that these are your go-to. I'm going to have to start carrying a water bottle so that I can read ingredients.
Read the 2 ingredients. It might be one. It may say 100% water, but just read it. Read it 10 times. Do something. Yeah, read the water bottle.
That's why I love you so much. Read the water bottle. Who says that? Arnita Taylor says that. We're gonna run to the comments. I'm cracking up because so Arnita and I have a lot of conversations, and they're a lot like this, but I also know what she's not saying too, because she's poised right now.
I'm very poised right now. I am. I'm gonna do it.
I just love her. I'm gonna run over to the comment section real quick. Let me see what we have here. Oh, okay. Yolanda says, when I think of being poised, I think of not just physically upright, but also verbally upright. Ooh, I love that. My closest friend is an introvert, and she always has told me that I'm an extroverted introvert. I boldly tell and accept the truth. I can probably say, I know I can say that that's definitely me. There's a word that kind of describes that a little bit better. It's like an ambivert, where you prefer being an introvert, but you know how to function as an extrovert when it's time. But your natural state is being an introvert. I'm the same way. She also says, in the last few months, I started to respond to triggers by saying, Jesus be offense.
All right.
So Arnita, she says she's laughing at you right now. Nicole says, that's good. All triggers aren't urgent. Man, wasn't that good? They're not urgent. That means that I don't have to respond to that right now. I was actually on a call today, a Zoom call with my business partner and a client, and there was something that was said that she and I both had the same trigger, but we filed it. Like I knew she caught it, I caught it, but we didn't address it. And after we had our wrap-up call, and she says, were you triggered by that? I was like, yeah. Were you triggered by that? He goes, yeah. And I said, I'm glad you caught that. And I said, well, you know what? I think that we will address this down the line when we're in a further relationship, so that they understand when we address it, it's coming from friendship, not trying to judge. So that's an excellent point. All triggers are not urgent. They don't require our response right away. I'm going to run over here and see what these comments are over here. Christiana's with us. Yeah, she's laughing at you, talking about you have to say your alphabets in the Greek.
In the Greek, you just do it differently. Yeah.
So good. So good. She says, also says, hey, gorgeous ladies, I agree. I found it's best for me not to respond to triggers right away either. I have to take time to think it through. And yeah, we all have those days. We're only human. And I think sometimes, it's not always it's not always what we're responding to that causes us to have a response. So if you're dealing with a lot of stress and you've got a lot of, schedule conflicts, and you've got a lot on your plate, it just might be that one straw that they say that breaks the camel's back. Is that the saying? That, yeah, and this person may be getting the brunt of a response that you may not normally give in that situation.
Right.
So it's not always personal. It could just be, I need to take some time and evaluate where that came from.
Exactly.
Talk to us, Arnita. So just talk. I don't even know what to say right now. Just talk to us.
Well, I love in the book how you talked about, being aware of presence. And I just don't think that's kind of a natural thing. I don't think that was something I was taught so much. You are taught, but you're not taught. I mean, like coached through or mentored through. That kind of came from watching different people. But I can tell you one of the best ways to learn to manage your presence is when you have children. That's a real good time to start monitoring and being aware of your presence, because those little people, male or female, they're mimicking you and you are modeling things for them. And so haven't you ever been in a room and you hear like a little 3-year-old say the same thing their mama say? And so that's so very important. I think parenting is a great shaping place for learning to be aware of your presence. That's a great way to develop any type of leadership position. I have never asked to be in leadership ever, ever, ever. I'll just turn around and there'll be people behind me. I'm like, where are we going? And we're going with you. And I'm like, well, where are we going? Because I don't even know where I'm going. And so you feel like a Pied Piper. Well, certainly when you realize you have influence and people are going to follow you, you got to work on your presence.
Yeah.
So for lots of different reasons, I read a really great book, a little tiny book, probably 15 years ago. And it was just a book called Leadership Presence. It was just very simple, less than 100 pages. I don't even know who wrote it. But there are ways to develop your presence. I think being around your poise, I think being around a really mature, emotionally intelligent female is another way.
Yeah. Well, when I asked you initially about doing this, I remember telling you, I've always thought of you as someone that was poised. And you were like, me?
I read the chapter 2 times.
I do, because even though just because you may be bold in telling the truth does not make you not aware of the impact that you're having. You're very, very mindful of the impact and the impression that you want to leave in the room or with a person. You don't
Yeah.
think so?
Well, yeah, it's just sometimes that impact is probably not what I want it to be, but that's okay too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roll on through it. Again, when you are a truth teller, you people just, man, yeah. You don't win popularity contests. I'm not trying to, but I'm just saying sometimes you don't control. There's no way for you to control really what people are going to receive off of you. Even though you mean the best for them,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have an interior motive. You don't have an adverse agenda
Yeah.
at all. And so it just depends. It just depends. But you're right. Most of the time, I'm trying to say something that I know will bring life more so than not, and will propel people to go forward in a more positive way than not. Now,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that. So
Yeah, I see that about you all the time. I can't say that I remember a time where you have not been poised.
oh
And
my,
so
I
I
need you in
know.
my life. I need you in my life. Yes.
Does poise always mean acceptable?
Acceptable as in,
As in, so let's say you're in an environment. This just came to me.
okay. Yeah, I know, but it's not in
I
my
did not
notes.
think. I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
It's
What'd you
not in
say?
our notes.
It's not in our notes. This just came to me. So your ability, or I'll just say me, my ability to tell the truth in a given environment, and I think I'm poised in how I'm delivering that message, and someone else does not accept that as poised, then maybe I'm being rude, or maybe I'm just being, nasty. Does what they receive in communication, is that always true? That just because they don't see it that way, does that not mean that I wasn't intentional with what I said?
Oh, I think you can be very intentional in what you say, and it be misunderstood, misreceived. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of the hard thing about being poised. Let me tell you. This is I hope my husband is watching this, because I'm about to put him out there. But my husband will always tell me, he'll say, Arnita, you'll need to probably ask people what percentage of the truth they want today. But you can't go give people 150% of the truth every time they ask you. And I'm like, well, why? Why did they ask me if they don't want the whole truth? So I've learned to have a gradient on the truth. Not that I'm not lying to you, but I'm just kind of fishing to see, let's see, what level can I say today? Hopefully you're going to come back for some more. But I have learned that I have to have a gradient. I have to kind of read the personality and a little bit more. And that's just kind of when I went into being more of a developer of leaders and stuff. I was like, yeah, I can see how they would think that was a little bit much. But for me, it wasn't. But for the sake of them, to honor the person, I'm just gonna throw out a few questions and see where we want to go today. So I'm learning that.
That is very helpful. That is very helpful. What is the percentage of truth that you want from me? What is the percentage, and maybe even the percentage of my delivery? Yeah. That reminds me of the chapter in the page in the book where we talk about the thermostat, checking the thermostat in the room before trying to adjust it. And that's one of the ways that that's one of the things that I'm working on, before interjecting my comment, my perspective. Is this the place?
Right.
Is it necessary? Is my perspective
absolutely
fruitful in this environment?
Yeah.
Maybe the best thing that I need to do is to just wait, or just, like you said, not respond to it immediately. I put some tips out here that we kind of mentioned in the book. The first one, check the temperature of the room before adjusting the thermostat. Before adjusting the atmosphere, read the room. We hear that phrase a lot. Read the room. Maybe it's not appropriate to tell a joke right there. Maybe it's not appropriate, to interject a political idea in this environment, or whatever that is.
Sure.
So read the room, see who's there, see, gauge the type of the conversation that is being engaged. in that environment. The second one is before adding input. I kind of went back to this. Ask, is it necessary?
Mm-hmm.
Is it timely? Is it helpful? And finally, is it self-serving? Is this input that I want to give, is it only to bring attention to me?
Yeah, sure.
Is only to bring attention to my opinion, my perspective, or does it actually add value in the dialogue?
Sure. You
What
know,
are your
I
thoughts about that?
go sometimes when you're going into a room and you're going to check the thermostat of the room, sometimes before you open your mouth, you need to be invited to open your mouth. You know, you don't have to go in the room and assume I'm in room, I have to open my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're a strong personality and a bold person like me, I normally will stand back to wait. You and I have had these conversations before when I go, oh my goodness, if they will just ask me. Like I'm just like, please, in sweet baby Jesus' name, will y'all ask me? Will somebody ask me to say something? Because I really need to say this, but I will wait. I think poise sometimes is not speaking until you're invited into a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly unless you know people very well when you walk into a room, like maybe your family or something, and you do that. But being poised to me with people that are outside of that framework, sometimes I like to be invited into the space and invited into the conversation. But once you invite me there, I don't want you to manage me when I'm there.
Ooh,
Bring me.
that's so good. When you invite me in, don't try to manage me.
Yeah, I want to be able to bring the fullness of me if you invite me. So yes, sir.
I love that. And because I know you, I know you mean that with all your heart.
I sure do. I mean that.
I sure do. Let me go run to these comments. Nicole says, she didn't get a poker face in her DNA either. She also said, catch me on the wrong day and it goes real bad, real fast. These triggers. Yeah, geez. Yeah. Yolanda says, Arnita, were you sitting on ready? You were sitting on ready is what she says. Yes. Over here, Ashley says, that is so wise. I agree. Especially, I kind of want to write that down so I don't forget. But you said, if you're going to invite me into the conversation, don't try to manage me.
Sure.
Yeah, because I just love that. I just love that statement because it may not be the conversation you want. And I shared a story. I actually shared a story in the book, but we talked about it last week about how there was this kind of an altercation between a store clerk and a customer. And I really, really, really wanted to say something. I really just wanted to correct the situation because the lady was just being super, super rude to the store clerk. And I sat there and waited for the opportunity, and she invited me in. And I told her, yeah, you're rude. You owe her an apology. And that wasn't the response that she was hoping for in the invitation. So she didn't know how to respond to that, but that's how it can go.
But that's really a hard dynamic of poise, because often when people do invite you into the conversation, they invite you for agreement.
Mm-hmm.
They're not inviting you to come on a contrary side to what they want to hear. And again, how do you operate in a poised place when that happens? That's a real conundrum sometimes.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation many times.
I know you have. I know this to be true. Yolanda says, baby, please don't invite part of me. I am not an egg and I cannot be separated.
Well, okay.
That's what she said. I want to come back. I want to kind of just go ahead and get into chapter 9 because we spent a lot of time on poise, but I want to say that one of my favorite chapters in this book is not chapter 9, chapter 8, Becoming the Misfit. And Becoming the misfit. Okay, let's before we do that, what do you tell me what you believe being a misfit is when I talk about this in the book?
You know, when you ask me that and when you talk about it in the book, you know, I'm an analytical scientist. I kind of overthink some things, and I'm like, well, it just depends what you're trying to fit into. So, are you trying to fit into something that someone orchestrated and built for you that you're not supposed to fit into, or are you trying to fit into somebody else's plan for you? You know, that happens in parenting all the time. Kids are trying to fit into the plan of the parents. So why do you even need to contour to somebody else? Kind of the question of being a misfit. So I may not be a misfit. I just may not fit into what you think I should fit into. Because in the big scheme of things, in the divine scheme of things, I'm not a misfit.
That's right.
I'm divinely orchestrated and I'm divinely planned and strategically put here in the time that I am. And so it just kind of depends how you see that. I think sometimes we give people a misfit label when they make us uncomfortable, when they don't fit into them. Yeah, they don't fit into it socially and they're a little bit off the path. And I'm going to tell you what, most great leaders are misfits. That's just kind of part for the course. It's kind of part of the territory. People will look at you like you cuckoo loony until later. They go, oh, well, you were onto something. So you kind of fit.
And when I wrote this chapter in the book, it was because I feel like as believers, like Jesus was the misfit.
A misfit
of his time. You know, the Pharisees, the people of that time looked at him as someone who was a disruptor. He disrupted every environment that he entered into, and he broke the laws of the Bible in the ways that they perceived it. And he demonstrated what God intended the law to be and to do. And that to them was a misfit. I kind of use the phrase good trouble. like the late John Lewis defined what his life was about, was being good trouble, being disruptive with our presence for the greater good. And I want to read this quote that kind of, I'm going to read it actually in its entirety. The quote that kind of stirred me when I was writing this chapter, it's from Steve Jobs. And he says, this is on page 121. He says, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do.
I love that.
And that line right there is the purpose for the chapter, is because we have a responsibility to change our world.
Yes.
And in order to change the world, or the world that we're a part of, it's going to require us not to blend into the environment. What's going to set apart, like you said, every good leader is in some way a misfit. We saw Jesus. If Jesus came and was not a misfit, he wouldn't have been Jesus, because he came to disrupt the pattern of things that was going the wrong way. And the only way that he could do that was to become the very thing that people needed.
Yes.
And that's eventually what got him crucified.
So
there is an expense to being good trouble or being the misfit.
It is, always.
So another reason why I asked you for this particular chapter is because I know you've been labeled as a misfit.
We're going to need to talk some more after this, y'all. I'm going to have to talk to her after this broadcast. Of course. It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, not to share a specific story unless you have a specific story you would like to share, but tell me about an experience where you had to be a misfit in that environment.
You know what? I've had so many episodes of being a misfit, but I think probably pretty recent, in the last 20 years, probably one of the biggest places I felt like a misfit in a way, but not in a way, is being a female pastor. I'm a clinical laboratory scientist. So, I've had a whole nother career before I went into pastoral ministry. And it's just so funny coming from a very fundamental religion where women just were not pastors. What is wrong with you? You have lost your mind. This can't be right. So probably being a female pastor made me think myself more as a misfit from probably than anything else that I've done in the last 20 years. But before that, I chose to be more of a traditional mom and stay at home after having a college degree. And that just kind of wasn't sexy. That wasn't the thing that people did. And, I wanted to be the one that really raised my children. And we moved to Texas, and there were a lot of other variables there. But that was kind of being a misfit for, my time and my family and a lot of things. That was being a misfit. Writing a book with two white dudes out of California, misfit. Why in the world are you talking to two white men about race? What are you thinking? Well, I got invited into the conversation. But I get backlash from that, just like they get backlash from knowing me. So it's just, but I'm not trying to fit in most little box and bubbles. So you just have to process it. I could go on and on.
Yeah.
But I love being a misfit. I love being a misfit.
I do too.
I love it.
I do too. I'm curious. The book, and we're going to talk about the books that you've written when a little later on, but you wrote a book, co-authored a book with the two gentlemen about developing a language of healing in a polarized, and I might have even just said the title, in a polarized, I kind of did, but it's about how to have conversations about race, sexuality, and all the things that polarize people in this society. I am really surprised, you just said that you get a lot of negative feedback or pushback from being a part of that project. What are people saying?
Well, it's funny. I don't get a whole lot because, I'm kind of no nonsense. So they're not going to come too hard. But just why in the world would you want to talk, have conversations? Why would you want to make a safe place for a white person to talk about race?
Oh,
literally. Wow. Why, are you not holding them accountable? Of course. Ask them. But what people don't get is you got to see inside 15 conversations. There were conversations over about a year and a half period. Yeah. A lot of people are thinking, why are you making it safe for them to talk about it? Because somebody's got to talk about it. And it's my road to walk, and not necessarily everybody's. And so, you'd be surprised. Today we were on a podcast, and one talked about him losing friends because he's in a relationship with me. So, it's just crazy stuff. But
that's a testament to these boxes that people try to put us in.
Sure.
And we're not responsible for living up to everybody else's expectations.
Nope.
We're not true to ourselves when we do that, and we're not true to the gift that God gives us and our purpose when we're taking the road of living in these expectations of others. Think about, you've affected a lot of people in your pastoral leadership, your leadership company that you have, your teaching of diversity, equity, and inclusion, also writing the book, being a mentor. You've had so many opportunities to change and affect and touch people's lives. How many of those lives would have not been affected had you stayed in the box?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And it's the same for all of us. Somebody's waiting on you to bust out of your box. Somebody needs a catalyst. Catalysts are sometimes the most mistreated people but they are the people that we need to redirect us and get us to go in a different direction. And so, everybody needs a good catalyst. We just tend to annihilate catalysts.
Oh, that's so true. We tend to annihilate the catalyst.
Yeah.
That's true, because if we've never seen it done before, they're obviously crazy. They're obviously doing something wrong.
Yes.
I'm running to the comments. Natasha says, changing our world for me means being more true to the truth in the process, than concerning for the outcome, than having concern for the outcome. Being honest, being truthful with what is going on, than actually the concern for the outcome. That's good. That's good. I'm running over here to this other comment section. Got a few more people watching. Thank you for tuning in. We want to hear what you have to say. What are some things, and I want you to light up the comments with this. Tell me some ways that you have been a misfit, those of you watching, and some areas where you struggle to be a misfit. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. I was teaching diversity and inclusion at a church a while back. And we were talking about, if you see something, or, if you see something that's wrong, it's your responsibility to speak up and say something, because you're a leader. These were leaders that I was talking to. And, someone mentioned in the class, well, just because we don't say something doesn't mean that we agree with it. Why should I have to speak up? And again, these are people in a very strong and visible leadership capacity within their church. Tell me a little bit about what you think about that. Those that know that they see something wrong, or see something that could be improved, and that can be changed for the better. And when you elect not to say something or to do something, what is the risk in that?
For me?
For anyone. Yeah.
Okay. I think it takes a lot of courage to do that. But again, if speaking up for what's right is a core value for you, you're not going to be able to not speak up. Yeah. So sometimes being poised and saying things in the right time, in the right place, are so linked to core values. Now, normally when I do core value exercises with people, they give me one core value. I'm Christian. I go, okay, let's break that down. So is that truth and faith? Because I'm Christian too, but my main core value is truth. So I just think sometimes that just kind of helps us to be able to know when to speak, if we can come along our core values and say things that we're really supposed to. Some people will never speak up, but what people always matter in every situation. People always matter. People last forever. And if you kind of think about that in your life, you may be the one person to speak up for that one scenario that you fill in the blank of what the scenario is, but you may be the one in the room to impart hope. You may be the one in the room to impart validation. You may be the one person in the room to speak up for somebody who has never felt seen in that room ever before. So people matter. So for me, it's worth the risk to speak up. But again, I have a D personality. I'm a leader. I'm 50 plus years old. So, I'm not held by some of the constraints.
Yeah.
That some people have.
You bring up a very, very good, strong point when it talks about what are your core values. And sometimes I don't even think people think about what is important to me. What is the root in which my life is growing from? What is the theme of my life? We talked again about John Lewis. He was someone who talked about good trouble. He knew that his life was going to be used to alter and change the trajectory of life for minorities and people that have been disenfranchised. This was the core of his life. This is what he wanted to use his life for. A lot of times we don't think about that. We think about it and define it as purpose, but even before there's purpose, we have to realize, who am I? What do I value? What do I bring to the table in this value to the human experience? what are some ways, and I know we didn't prepare to talk about this, but it was just so good to me. What are some ways that people can help identify their own core values?
Well, first of all, look at what makes you mad. What are your triggers? Sometimes the very thing that triggers you, that makes you mad, if you look at the positive expression of that, that's going to be a core value for you. Core values show up when they get hit. That's what I say. When you hit a core value, when they get kind of pushed on, they'll show up. Like for me, diversity is a core value. I've been doing that for years. Why would I go from moving to Atlanta, moving to Dallas, going from African American church to white evangelical church? Who does that? So it's kind of like, but diversity is a core value for me. So I'm really trying to live along those lines. Fun, learning, change, all of those things are core values for me. So sometimes when those things come up, I am going to speak up. I'm going to try to speak up in a poised manner, but I have taken my mind through those are core values. Those are important to me. And so I think that's one of the big pluses of knowing when to speak and how to speak up is this essential enough to me?
That's so good. So I'm giving everybody that's watching a homework assignment.
Okay.
Based off of what you just talked about. I want those of you that are watching and those that are really interested in applying some of these principles and these tools and traits in the book. I want you to think about what your core values are and just kind of write it down. And it's something that is going to take a little time. And again, I love the tip that you gave about asking yourself what triggers you, because that's always a sign. What makes you cry? Maybe that's something that inside of you are innately designed to heal. What makes you mad? Maybe there's some gifting there that causes you to be the resolution or solve a problem for those things that make you mad. So that will help you to define what your core values are. And then in doing that, you'll see ways that you will organically become good trouble. It organically become the change agent and the catalyst for change in that environment. So good. I'm going to run to the comments and see what's going on here. All right. Lots of people watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. My dad says since we're to be like Jesus, we must speak the truth. Speaking the truth to power as Jesus did. And that's so good. That's actually the response when the lady in the class asked me, why should I speak up? That was my response. Well, because Jesus did. I mean, if we're to follow his pattern, there should be something in us that gets disturbed when we see other people hurting.
Yeah, sure.
Or seeing other people in need, and there could be a resolve in your hands. That is one of the character traits of Christ, is that because he was the misfit or good trouble, he used his platform, he used his time, he uses his intention, his purpose to make sure that he spoke up on others' behalves.
Sure.
Running to this comment here. One thing Liggins would say is, people say a lot. I watch what they do. People say a lot. I watch what they do. In our 5 years together, my girls commanded that people do and stop talking just like he did. Action, action, action. Pay more attention to what you're doing, not just saying.
Sure.
So that's very, very good.
Very good.
Are you willing to share a time when you've been a misfit? I know you said I've got many. Do you have a story you want to share with us?
I don't think I have just a particular story. I was the kid who graduated from high school, first one off to college, first college graduate in my family. All of that is really different. When you are the first person doing that, moved to Atlanta in my 20s, live by myself. I was just always kind of a misfit to grow up from a small town. So I'm just okay with it. I just think that that's part of living in a different life with God too. Sometimes we just have to put that fear back that we talk too much about, and go forward and do some things afraid, and let him help us be pioneers in the
Ooh,
lives of others. Let him help us be pioneers in our communities, online, whatever platform.
yeah,
Jesus was a pioneer. Yeah,
yeah,
we are like him. So let's pioneer and change some things in the world for the better. We
yeah.
need to. We all need to.
We need to. We have to.
We
We
have to.
have to, because if we're waiting for them, whoever them is,
Whoever them is.
to
Yeah.
be the change, we're going to be waiting.
Yes. We gotta.
We're going to be waiting, and things will begin crumbling because we didn't utilize
Yeah.
what we have available to us. Real quickly, I want to talk about so what. That begins on page 118, just because it answers the question, why should I do this? What if I don't see the benefits of speaking up or doing the right thing all the time? We don't always see the benefits right away.
No.
You
No.
know, we will not always. I said this in the book. Sometimes you'll plant a seed and the harvest won't be in the same field that you planted, but you're going to see a harvest. And if you're doing the right thing, maybe the focus isn't just making sure that you get a harvest from it, but knowing that you planted the right thing in the atmosphere. You planted the right thing in the soil. And it was necessary. It may not necessarily be for an immediate response, but that people needed that. Somebody needed that. The environment needed that.
Right.
That's a good enough answer right there. That's a good enough reason to become a misfit.
Yeah.
Before we go, I have a few examples of how you can be a misfit right now. And we talked about how yes, your traits can be developed, but there are some things that people can do right now, just in practice, that kind of, it disrupts the flow of life. And I say, especially in the Western civilization, we hear you should be responsible for yourself. Everyone is responsible for themselves. Pick yourselves up by the bootstraps. You be responsible for you. But that is not the mentality that Christ had.
Right.
It was, how can I be of service to those in need?
Sure.
And one of the best ways that we can do that is to show up for others. Being a misfit is also, have you ever paid for somebody's groceries and you saw the reaction that they had? They're probably indignantly mad that you did that, because of whatever the implications are. I talked about in the book how someone paid forward to me being in the Starbucks line. Someone paid for my drink, and I was so upset. I was so angry. The person ahead of me was being a misfit in that moment, and I just thought, well, why did they do that? That's initially the thought. Do they not think I have it? We start thinking about why this person did this, or we make it internalized about ourselves. But that's what a misfit does, is that they do the right thing. They do good thing that disrupts what people are used to experiencing.
Yeah.
And so misfits are people who change things for the better. They ask why does it have to be this way?
Yeah.
I know you've done that. I've done this. Just because it's this, does it mean is this the right? Is this the best thing?
Yeah.
Like, surely there's another way that we can achieve the same goal without having to do this. We look for other options. Examples of being a misfit: paying for someone's groceries, lunch, gas, coffee. Yes, those are ways of being a misfit. Sticking up for the underdog, the disenfranchised, the voiceless. And I say using your influence and privilege to help someone in need.
Absolutely.
Again, we live in a society where people want, the status quo is you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
We
Sure.
don't really look out for our neighbors the way we used to, and the way we're supposed to.
Sure.
So it seems disruptive in that.
One of my favorite quotes is Mother Teresa: "We lose our peace when we forget we belong to each other."
Ooh, I love that.
I just love that. I say that every day. We lose our peace when we forget we belong to each other. We have to find some more of our collectiveness as we go forward, particularly, in this season. And so important.
I want to ask one more question before we go, and I think it kind of ties back into the Poise chapter.
All right.
How do you know when and when not to be the misfit in an environment?
You know, I'm going to be spiritual here. You know, sometimes it's just gonna be that little nudge from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It's really gonna be a spiritual thing because you know every situation is not assigned to you. I have a friend who says everybody's not assigned to you. Every situation is not assigned to you. Sometimes it's not the best use of your time. But even with that being said, there are times that you're in scenarios that you'll go, no, I'm supposed to retreat on this one. And then there's other times you won't be able to leave the room without going to do what you're supposed to do. So that's really more of a soul and spirit thing, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Again, once that comes up, if God is prompting you to do it, he's going to give you the poise to do it in the proper way.
Oh, that's good. If God is asking for you to do it, he's going to give you the poise to do it in the proper way.
He'll give you
that is really good. I'm looking at the questions here. Yolanda asks a question here. She says, do you ever get fussed at for always looking out for each other? She gets that all the time. Have you ever been fussed at for that?
No, I haven't. But but largely, again, some of that comes from probably family of origin. Some, you're taught that somewhere to really look at. Some of that's personality driven. The kid who's more concerned with the child who doesn't have the pencil in the back of the room and gets in trouble. The teacher because they're worried about John not having the pencil in the back of the room. And so, I think that's all situational. But I'm sure there are lots of people who catch flack for always looking out for each other. It's counterculture almost now.
Yeah, it really is. It's so much easier to be a misfit in the culture that we environment. Yeah, it is. It's so much easier to be a misfit. Nicole says that there are no rules to being a misfit.
Well, I don't know. Because, one of the situations or scenarios you bring up in the book is I don't know that a rebellious attitude is the way to be a misfit. Now, there are different levels of rebellion. I don't want to get into all that. But what I'm saying is I think your tone and the way you rebel, like for me, my best way to silently protest is just not be a part. I don't have to, but in my mind, I'm probably rebelling from something. But it's just not out loud. It's just out loud, And so I think being a real aggressive, rebellious misfit, I don't know that that's going to serve you well.
And that's the difference between good trouble
to you. It's not going to draw people to you, and it's not going to build trust. It's just going to probably not be advantageous. So I won't say there are no rules. I do think we need some boundaries there.
Yeah, and I agree. I think what you just described is someone that doesn't have the heart for good trouble. Like if you're doing it from a rebellious mindset and a rebellious attitude, it's not for the right reasons in the first place.
Probably not.
Most probably not. Probably not. That's good. Probably not. It's not always absolute. Arnita, all I can say is thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything you want to add to this conversation that we did not cover tonight?
Oh no, we could talk for a couple of more hours. I can just open
Yes, we can.
I appreciate you so much for doing it. And I saw the three other ladies who preceded me, Jeanette, Christiana, and Lanisha, and I just enjoyed that. I'll be watching Thursday. And, thank you for your investment into conversation and getting people together, particularly during COVID-19. And your book is a real treasure. My book club is going to do it when we are post-COVID. And we'll be inviting you over to do this with us in person for a couple of chapters. So
thank you.
And your gift and your offering to us.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you for bringing your wisdom, your perspective, just all that you are. I anytime I invite you to anything, I want you to bring all of you 150%.
It's all coming. She all coming.
I don't know that I've ever seen you without being the 150%. but I absolutely love and adore everything about you. And it's just such an honor to have you. I want to show off some of your accomplishments just really quickly. These two books here. The first book is the conversation. It is her talking about the different ways that we can create safe and brave environments to have the conversation around how we heal our nation, how we heal our nation that is always seems to be divided about something, whether it's race, politics, sexuality, whatever that is. One of the best ways that we can heal it is through conversation. And she's written a book. She co-authored a book with two other gentlemen on how to do just that. I want to make sure that you follow Arnita also here on Facebook. Look her up, Arnita Willis Taylor, as well as on Instagram, Arnita Taylor. Make sure you grab these two books. The second book is the conversation guide. It is, if you are interested in engaging and creating these types of conversations that heal your community, that heal your family, the conversation guide is a great tool to help make sure that you're creating the type of spaces that are conducive to a positive outcome. Again, it's about developing a language of healing, not a language of being right. It is how do we come together to come to a new and agreeable thought? It doesn't mean that we will agree on everything, but can we come to an agreeable thought and work on the relationship together? So please make sure you grab that book. Do you want to say anything about that book? Because I feel like you can talk more about it than I can.
It was really a treat to be able to do it with Robert Prater and Wayne Jacobson. And again, we just wanted to have conversations. We are just three regular people that said, my goodness, we need to get together and talk through some of this. Maybe we can model and give someone courage enough to talk about it. It's time for us to talk about things so we can heal, to lessen the effects of what's happening in our country. And all of us play a part, one person and one conversation at a time. We can't wait for them to do it. We can't wait for other people to do it. We have got to have ownership, one conversation, one relationship at a time. So
that's right. It starts with us. And what I love, and I have your book over here. I should just go grab it. But one of the things that I absolutely love about the format of the book, it is literally a conversation.
Literally.
And you actually can see times in the conversation where one of you may not agree with something that somebody else says.
Sure.
And how you guys work it out together to come to an agreeable thought. Even though we still have our perspectives that are polarized here, how can we still talk this through to come to an agreeable thought right now?
Sure.
And the format is so conversational, and it's obvious that you guys don't agree on everything, but you were able to come together and put out this product and show people how to have the conversations the right way.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. We all three survived it, and we're still friends. So it all worked.
Make sure you grab the book. I'm going to put it on the screen again, just so that you have it. You have it. A Language of Healing for a Polarized Nation. Get both copies. Get the regular, the meat copy and the conversation guide that teaches you how to have these types of discussions. And then I need you all to join me this Thursday, because we have a very good friend of mine coming to talk to us about chapters 9 and 10. We are rounding out the book with my good friend Annette Murray, who also is an author of a book called Finding Me. And as I read her book in its entirety in one sitting. I was on a flight, and it was, first of all, the story was so gripping. And as I was reading her book, there were just so many parallels to her journey as it was with my journey as well. So I just said, you know what, I need to have her be a part of this. There's so much that I can learn from her, so much that we as a group can learn from her. So please, again, it's not next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is the election. For those of you that don't have early voting in your area, make sure that you get to the polls. I didn't want to take away from that opportunity for those that want to vote or need to vote on Tuesday. So we're having this discussion this Thursday, day after tomorrow, 2 days. from today, make sure you join us, and we will have another exciting conversation with Annette Murray. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Arnita,
Thank
for
you for
such
having me.
a powerful. Again, I always learn from you. I always learn from you. I always enjoy just having you around, just your presence. We laugh about everything.
We do.
And I'm just so grateful that you joined us. I'm going to run to the comments really quickly and make sure that everybody has the opportunity to be heard before we go.
Right.
Yolanda says, yes, you're right about that nudge. The Holy Spirit will nudge you and say, hey, this is not your battle. Hey, this is not yours. This is not yours. Also, Narisha, you have truly answered a call on that. It was very necessary. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Nicole says, this is good. Natasha says, thank you for such a discussion. I couldn't agree more, Arnita. Thank you for such a good discussion. I'm so excited. All right. I love you. And thank you all. Yes. Thank you all for tuning in to another book club. It's been great. Annette also says she also enjoyed the conversation tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing you all come back. Make sure you come back. Thursday, we're going to wrap it up. I'll have an announcement for you too. So make sure you come back on Thursday. And I look forward to seeing you. Thank you. Have a wonderful week, and may God bless you.